stories. Coach Bradley always says that no matter how doom and gloom it might seem, there's going to be a story that comes out of this, positive story. And so, he's one of them that's been taking advantage of his ops.
Bethune versatile enough to play all three spots?
He is. That Mike linebacker spot, we're trying to make sure that we solidify that behind Fred to make sure that we have a guy who can still run the defense, God forbid, if something happens. But Tatum has all the ability to play all three spots.
Time coming out in the draft, I don't think was that high, and he was a seventh-round pick. Does he play faster than that?
He plays much faster than – it's kind of like Greenlaw. Greenlaw ran a molasses 40, but his GPS suggests differently.
Martin mentioned the other day what a patient coach you are, and that it helps to learn from you in that way. Has it always been your style? Did someone teach you that, or is that just who you are?
I'm not sure. It's been my style, like in terms of, their kids. It's going 100 miles an hour, and you trust. I guess just through time, you just trust that they're gonna figure it out. They just need reps, and you try to put yourself in their shoes on what they're going through and the different things that are going on. It's not just football. Think about all of us, what we were doing when we were 23 years old, but without not even close to the distractions they had. I know where I was. Thank God I didn't have Instagram phones back then, but no, it's you've got to be patient with them. It's back in the day there'd be yelling and screaming if a kid, they're trying. They're not trying to make mistakes, and so the most important thing we can do is just teach in those moments. And as long as the kid, the young man, has the wherewithal or the internal drive to continually try to get better, which you can see, then as a coach you always have patience because guys like them will always figure it out.
Like Dallas Flowers, who at one point in his career was on an upward trajectory. Injuries derailed him a little bit in Indy. This is almost like a second chance for him. Have you noticed like a sense of urgency from him in camp and really trying to take advantage?
It'd probably be more of a question for Gus. He had him out in Indianapolis, and I see a young man who's going for it. He's taking, again, another guy who's trying to do his best to take advantage of every opportunity he gets. And I've always, it's what I've appreciated about this organization since the day I walked in here. I just feel like all these guys, every player, the sense of urgency and the way everyone attacks every day is always on high. And Dallas without exception, but he's definitely been going for it.
Robert, when you're the Jets head coach and you've got all sorts of other responsibilities, which I'm sure you love some and maybe didn't love others, but was it always like when you got to go and do your defense, was that still the favorite part of the job for you?
Anytime. I've said it before, like you get to that chair because of your football acumen, and then all of a sudden you're a firefighter. And so when you get to go in the film room and watch tape, it's like, oh God, I'm back in my comfort zone. But anytime, it's what got us there. So of course you always want to get back to that.
Maybe a stupid question, but I guess given like some of the time constraints and everything, how did you improve and become I assume you feel like a better defense coordinator?
That's a good question, E. Felt like I was able to spend a lot more time with the offense, and just trying to be a head coach and, just making sure that we're all focused on one goal to accomplish what we were trying to accomplish from a goal standpoint. But, so you learn a lot of offense and you learn what they're looking at and you start to see the windows that they see, I guess. And so when, it gave us the opportunity to watch defense from a different light. And so you can see what they're trying to attack. You can see how they game plan. You can see what they're looking for. And so it just gives you a different angle as to how to approach it from a coordinator standpoint.
Robert, I know you guys have a...
Did some of that happen by like osmosis, or at some point are you like, hey, this is actually really helpful?
No, from the gig. Kyle, and I've said it before, his team meetings are as good as anybody in football. I'm not going to speak for anyone else. I just speaking for Kyle Shanahan and all the head coaches I've been around. His team meetings are the most educational. If you are any kind of a person, you write down everything he says. You're going to get better leaving his team meetings, and it's like stealing the information he gives. So if you're a student of the game, you're going to look for every single edge you can, and so when you're in different areas where you can learn and apply it to multiple facets of football and all the different things that it only helps.
You're missing so much time. How is Alfred Collins coming along? I mean, especially conditioning wise.
Yeah, his legs are getting under him. I know he didn't love the game he had against Vegas, but love the way he's bounced back this week. He's done a really nice job this week, especially in the run game, showing you could just see the violence and the strain that we saw in college is starting to show up little by little. And, I know he wants some of those plays back from the Vegas game, but his trajectory is still going in the right direction.
Is that about at the right weight where you want him? Is that kind of where?
Yeah, it's, I always tell guys for him it's going to be as light as he can get without losing his power, because that's what he is. And right now he's in a good fighting weight.
I know you guys, it's a one game at a time deal, and you get the Chargers, but Seattle, just looking at them a little bit statistically, they are really running it well. I think they ran it almost 50 times at the Chiefs the other night for like 5 yards a pop. Do you let yourself peek ahead to week one, or is it just Chargers?
No, you're always trying to stay ahead. Week one is still most important. The Chargers game is obviously very important for a lot of people, especially a lot of the decisions that we've got to make from a roster standpoint. Our first objective as a staff is to make sure these young men are prepared to attack the Chargers in the best way they can, because we owe it to them to try to make a 53-man roster, whether it's here or somewhere else. So we're going to obviously give them every tool they can for the Chargers. With that said, though, when things slow down and you feel like you've checked your boxes, absolutely, you're always going to look ahead, and especially to your week one opponent, just to start gathering thoughts, because it's happening quick. We're good? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Ben, what is the biggest difference for you, like, between your rookie year and this year? Like, I guess, where have you made the biggest jump?
That's a good question. I'll just say, like, just my mentality, really. I knew I always could play and run and hit, very instinctive, but it's just the way I approached it last year, and then now it's totally different. I was a rookie thinking I thought it was going to be sweet, but, everybody good, and I really had to check myself and reevaluate myself after the season and see the things that I was doing, and I compared it to Fred's film, and I thought it was trash. So this offseason, I tried to be a sponge and do everything Fred does, just from the way he carries himself off the field and to on the field. Coach Johnny, he sent me a lot of film work over the offseason, and I just stayed in. I came back early around March, kept me in with Johnny, and it's been helping me so far. I'm not all the way there yet, but I see a huge difference even in just the way I take my first step and with my first few shuffles, and I compare it to last year. It's a big difference. I still got a long ways to go, but yeah.
A little faster this year than last year. Did you spend some time in the offseason kind of remaking your body a little bit?
Yeah, I don't think I was slow. I know I ran a 4.7, but shit. But I would say it's just locking in the way I eat. Remember I said Fred, he helped me with everything. Just being a sponge, understand, seeing what he eats, seeing what he does, and I did the same thing, and I felt the difference, and I understand now that those are things I need to keep improving on, and that's going to help me go far in this league.
At what point did the switch flip where you realized that you had to change what you were doing?
Sure, it started last season, actually. I noticed it, but I know during the middle of the season, it's kind of too late to try to change it. It's not too late, but you get what I'm trying to say. So before the offseason even came, I already had a plan on what I wanted to do, the things I needed to work on, and how I was going to do it. So, yeah.
That last game of the season when you started, right, played the whole game, what did that teach you, or were you able to use that as a pretty good tool to go, maybe build some momentum going into the offseason?
Yeah, that was my first game coming off IR too, so I just knew that was a huge opportunity for me just to show the coaches that I could play, and I didn't want to let the guys that was already in there, like Fred and D, they've been playing the whole season. When I got out there, I just felt like I shouldn't let them down, so I just stayed focused and just did what I had to do.
You've been filling in for Fred and Mike, but what's your ability to slide over and play Will if that's what they want you to do?
I could play anywhere I feel like they need me, so it's really on their call, but if it comes up, I'll be ready.
You got a good pop on Genty in this game. Who took the worst of that? You seem like you got hit.
Nah, it was a great hit by both of us. That's what you want from a defender, not even just me. He go into that kill zone, somebody go sting him, and the rest of the defense rally to the ball. It was a 2-yard gain, so I'm proud of it. So, yeah.
You learned about yourself last year. Are you imparting any of that on Nick Martin at this point?
Yeah, the things I went through last year, Nick is going through the same thing. So even though we the same age, I kind of treat myself like he's my little brother. I make sure I'm in his head before we go out on the field. And one of the Raiders game, he had a hell of a game, and I just told him, like, just be you, run and hit. And that's what he did. So it's just good to see Nick just keep doing it and getting better.
What were your first impressions of Nick? Sorry.
Talked to him after the first game when he had kind of a challenging.
Nick knows when he needs to do better. I don't really be on him like that, but when it's time for us, both of us, to get on that field, or if it's time for me or time for him, we make sure we encourage each other, go out there and just be us.
I'll say, what were your first impressions of Nick? What gives him a chance to kind of be a special player?
I just say it's really a lot of guys' mentality, the way he approaches things. He's fast, he's physical, and when you combine that together, man, you're a beast. So it's just a lot of technique things that he need to work on, and same thing I need to do. So we both just getting better.
Couple more. Is there one thing from being a sponge with Fred that you said, "Oh, I can do that"?
Fred, I used to ask Fred about his tactics that he used off the field, and Fred told me he's not telling me anything else until I get my nutrition and my hydration together. And that's I took that serious because like he's right. Like I can't do the simple stuff right. Then what makes me think I could go out there and do all the things he's buying to help him help his body be better. So yeah, just I started on that, and then seeing him, just yeah, I'm very grateful for Fred. Honestly, I'm thinking about it now. It's just he helped me come a long way.
What did you cut out of your diet?
I'm a real sweet tooth guy, so I like a lot of candy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, not no more.
Saleh was saying that, we were talking about, you mentioned your 40 time a little bit ago. I was asked him if you were fast enough to play all three spots and versatile enough, and he said, yeah. He goes, Dre Greenlaw had a molasses slow 40 time, but that's, GPS says that's not how he plays. That the way you feel?
Yeah, football speed and the 40 speed, them two different things. If you run a 4.4 in the 40 but don't run a 4.4 on the field, then yeah, so.
How would you describe now your hydration and your nutrition? What are you focusing in on both of those?
I'll just say that's a priority for me, especially the hydration. Sometimes I have my cheat meals, but the hydration is everything. That's how soft tissue injuries come along, and I don't want that. I want to stay on his field as much as possible. So, yeah.
Johnny says that year two you really know the defense a lot better. Do you find yourself have the ability to play faster because you do know the D?
Yeah. Like I said, off season I kept meeting with Johnny on my own, just trying to get even the times he couldn't. I just told him to send me some stuff I could look at and work on, and he did, and it just helped me a lot, especially just seeing Fred. Every single clip was Fred, so yeah, just seeing that, it helped me a lot, just be able to just go fast and not think and be able to be a leader also.
What was the hardest candy you've given up?
The hardest candy?
Yeah, like the toughest for you to say goodbye.
I love Swedish Fish, but yeah, I gave it up. Yeah. Appreciate it.
How's the shoulder feeling? I know we've seen you back in practice, but how's it feeling?
It's felt really good overall, honestly. I think the biggest thing, with any injury is just, making sure that you maintain that strength, throughout. That way, you continue that strength on. So, just making sure I'm staying on top of it.
You ended last season with a scary incident with your knee injury and you got carted off in Arizona, right? Was there any lingering issue for you going into the offseason, and just how did you approach this coming season?
No, not going into the off season. I would say, I obviously spent some time here rehabbing that, but I was able to take my time. Granted, it was going into the off season, and made sure that I got to a really healthy point. That way, going into OTAs and then further on in that camp, I was good to go.
How scary was the incident?
It's just kind of one of those freak things. You get twisted in an awkward way, and then stuff happens. Unfortunately, that's the game in itself. So,
What do you feel like your biggest jump from last year to this year is?
I just think the transition was a lot smoother. I spent a lot of time here in the off season, just because, I felt as, this is going to be the place where I'm recovering. This is going to be a place where I spend, obviously, my time all season. So being able to develop that routine here in the off season, I think was a big step and made that transition into camp a lot easier.
Tatum was just in here talking about how much he's had to change his body and his lifestyle in his second year, realizing after his first year that it didn't work out as well for him. Is that something you also had to do?
I think just naturally, just with diet and stuff, it's not that I had a poor diet last year, but I think there were certain things that I focused, just to allow me to have a better frame, going into this season. I felt like all off season, I was able to do that, which so I feel pretty good where I'm at now.
How are you feeling this camp? Do you feel faster?
I wouldn't say faster necessarily. I just feel like I can move a little bit better. I think relatively, like most of the time, like I always feel fairly fast, which is good. But like I said, that in and out of the cuts stuff, I feel a little bit better this year. So.
You caught 15 out of 16 passes they threw you last year, so you showed really good receiving skills. Does that go back to playing receiver in high school? Where do your receiving skills come from?
I think, naturally, yes, but, just spending time working on that kind of myself, in college, in the early end, there wasn't a lot of balls that I caught. I think further on than that, going into Louisville, it started to showcase a little bit more, but, even outside out of game time and practice time, it's something that I work on and focus on, as far as route running and catching balls. So, I think that's something that's been important, and, it's obviously important in this offense as well. So,
How much do you pick up in that regard from Christian? Because as running backs go, he's probably the best in terms of running routes and catching them.
I mean, obviously the best to learn from as far as that goes. But, at the end of the day, everybody's different. Everybody's going to run routes differently. But, there's a lot of things that you can pick up, technique-wise that work. But, at the end of the day, I still have to, work within myself and, what I can use to my advantage because, he has a skill set of his own with his route running. So, I mean, he's one of one with that. But, just continuing to ask for tips here and there, he's always been helpful with that.
You guys were getting close to running out of healthy running backs. Was it nice to say, I'm okay, I can now help join that field, get back to practice?
Obviously I think timing-wise, it's nice, but, as you guys know, with this game, stuff happens fast, stuff changes quick. So, you kind of always have to be ready for that. And obviously praying for a speedy recovery for all those guys. But, like I said, stuff changes quick.
The leaders on the offense, George is very vocal. What is Christian like in the running backs room?
He's a great leader. I think just within our group, within our room, he helps a lot as far as just creating that mindset, creating the standard for that room, as well as Coach T along with that. There's a really high standard in that room that we hold ourselves to. So just all of them making sure that we play to that, each and every day. It's important to them. It's important to me. So, just continuing to uphold that.
Your guys' last drive today on practice was a pretty long march downfield and Christian was in for, I think, all but about 2 of those carries. Is that kind of like the dream offensive drive, I guess, for the first team offense, not necessarily for you, but to be able to get down the field and like that?
I think as an offense, by nature, you obviously want to move the ball as much as you can. So, I think as an offense, that's the standard that we hold ourselves to as far as, being able to move the ball and move it efficiently. So, I think that's it with that.
You heard about what Bobby Turner is like during the draft process. What is he like for you guys as rookies, and then what has it changed this year for you?
Obviously, like I said with Bobby T, he's one of the most detailed in the game. That's what makes him such a great coach. So, obviously, you appreciate him a lot for that. And, he stays on me, which, I couldn't appreciate more because, I know I need it in order to reach my potential. So, just the details that he has within the game, being able to expand my knowledge based on, or, just outside of running the ball, it's important. That's what makes complete backs. Obviously he's coached a lot of great ones. He's, made a lot of great ones. So, just continuing to take his coaching points every day. That's important to me. That's what I'm going to continue to do. So.
You'll have to turn in homework every week.
Oh yeah, no, you'll stay on your stuff for sure. But, that's why he's so sharp, and that's what makes us sharp too. So.
What was it like picking the offense up last year, and what do you enjoy most about the offense now?
Like I said, I feel like that transition, obviously going into it year one, it's a very complex offense. So, picking it up, it can be difficult. Your mind's racing 100 miles per hour. But I think this year, just the biggest thing was all of that stuff slowing down a little bit. So, you can focus on like the quality of those reps that you're getting. But for me, I feel like that's been the biggest transition.
I was asking Bergen the other day, is there a returner that he studies? And he said he named a guy. How about you? For you, I mean, your game. Do you have when you're at Louisville or in Wisconsin? Was there a back that you kind of emulated?
I think back-wise, he was a mentor for me when I was young. Was Jonathan Taylor, just because, I think being like bigger backs, being able to still have speed, that was kind of where we were similar. So, I just modeled myself like, a lot of with what he did. But like the more I'm in this room, the more I watch film on him. And, Raheem, I think me and him are, as far as like speed-wise, he's might be faster than me, but I think just play style and everything, I think we're pretty similar in that category as well. So
Thank you.
appreciate you guys.